You ever stop and think about how weird it is that we spend so much of our free time on things that are basically designed to tell us we're not good enough? I mean, from the toughest video games to just a simple crossword puzzle, we seem to absolutely love a challenge that pushes back. So today, we're going to dive into this powerful and, believe it or not, super useful idea, the art of failure.
I mean, really think about that for a second. In a challenging game, failure isn't some bug or a mistake in the design. It's a core feature. It's this strange paradox that honestly goes way beyond just games. It touches on how we find meaning and even joy in all sorts of challenging experiences.
And this leads us to something philosophers actually talk about called the paradox of painful art. Why do we sit through a tragic Shakespeare play or a movie we know is going to make us cry? Well, it's pretty much the same reason we're willing to face that final boss in Super Mario for the 10th time. We're looking for something much deeper than just simple, easy pleasure. So what's really going on here is this fundamental conflict inside us. In the heat of the moment, our brain is screaming, "Avoid this, this feels bad." We don't want the pain of losing. But our long-term self, the part of us that wants a good story, knows that the struggle, the failure, is what makes the final victory feel earned and meaningful.
Okay, so let's take that big idea of painful art and really zoom in on games. This brings us to what we can call the paradox of failure. What makes failure in a game so unique is that its meaning is, well, it's kind of blurry. Since the consequences aren't real, we have this amazing freedom. We can treat a loss like it's the most serious thing in the world, a real challenge to our skills, or we can just shrug and say, whatever, it's just a game. And that flexibility, that choice, is exactly what makes it such a powerful tool.
And this paradox plays right into our own psychology. You know how it is. Our first instinct when we mess up is to blame anything but ourselves. The controller's sticky, there was lag, whatever. But to actually get better, to actually win, we have to flip a switch in our brains. We have to accept it and start seeing every failure not as an end, but as a piece of data.
And the type of game completely changes the flavor of that failure. Look at this. If you lose a game of pure skill, like chess, it feels personal. The message you get is, I am flawed. But in a game of pure chance, like a coin flip, it just feels cosmic, like, I'm just unlucky today. And then there are games that are just labor, just grinding. Failure there doesn't feel deep at all. It just feels like you wasted your time. The design of the game totally shapes our emotional reaction.
So it's pretty clear that games are these powerful psychological motivators. But what happens when we try to take those mechanics, the points, the levels, the constant feedback, and apply them to the real world? Let's talk about what happens when games go to work.
There's a buzzword for this: gamification. And on the surface, the idea sounds amazing, right? Just add some points, ranks, and maybe a leaderboard to a boring task. The promise is that you can harness the power of games to make work more fun, more engaging, more productive. But as you can probably guess, there's a pretty big catch.
So here's the best case scenario. You've got an employee, Jennifer, who's totally bored with her call center job. Then her company gamifies it. All her performance metrics are now points and ranks in this big competitive game. It sounds perfect, a real win-win. But then there's reality. Before the 2008 financial crisis, the bank Washington Mutual had a system that felt a lot like a game. Loan officers got big rewards for pushing loans through. So when a loan screener named Sherry Zabak did her job and flagged a risky loan, she wasn't seen as a hero. She was seen as an obstacle, someone who was standing in the way of other people getting their points.
This example just perfectly reveals the core problem. Seriously, a Soviet-era factory started rewarding its chandelier makers based on the total weight of chandeliers they produced. So what do? They started making the heaviest, most ridiculous chandeliers in the world. People will always optimize for the metric, not the actual goal. And unlike in a video game, the real-world consequences can be absolutely disastrous.
And all of this brings us right back to the magic of games. Why does this whole failure thing work so beautifully in the world of play, but become so dangerous when we drag it into the real world? The answer is all about the freedom to fail.
The reason games are such incredible learning tools is simple. The consequences aren't real. There's no tangible punishment for losing. This gives us what you could call plausible deniability. We can always just say, it didn't matter anyway. It creates this perfect, safe laboratory for learning, where we can experiment and take huge risks without any real-world fallout.
This famous quote just perfectly captures that beautiful contradiction of play, doesn't it? We can pour so much emotional energy into a game, treating it like it's life and death, precisely because we know, deep down, that it isn't.
That fundamental safety is what allows us to get so deeply engaged in the first place.
So that little phrase we all use, "it's just a game," is kind of a crucial illusion. It's a pretense, sure, but it's a necessary one. It's what gives us permission to take our successes seriously while shrugging off our failures. It creates this protected space where we can struggle with our own limits and get better, all without any real stakes.
Which leaves us with one last, really fascinating question. Games create this safe illusion for us to practice failing over and over again. But if it's all just a pretense, why do the lessons we learn there, the resilience, the problem-solving, the confidence, why do those things feel so incredibly real? Maybe the art of failure is really just another name for the art of learning.